Hello, and welcome to another episode of Critical Political Thinking. My name's Corey Camasso, and I'm your host. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how the Democrats, through Joe Biden, are attempting to, from what we can see, destroy the infrastructure of America. Additionally, they are attempting to put out a Green New Deal Part 2, retitled as an infrastructure plan, and we're going to talk how little actually goes to infrastructure and the rest to a democratic, socialist, Marxist agenda. And we're going to explain in detail where most networks have failed to do so. They're only talking about the highlights instead of the actual detriment and problems that this will create and the actual loss of jobs. They're talking about the jobs it will create, but the balance isn't there. And additionally, we're going to talk about the tax hike that Joe Biden plans to implement on the rich, and now everyone apparently, even though he claimed he would not be taxing anyone making under $400,000. So we're going to go over all of these things as well as how the Democrats are, in fact, destroying America. Welcome to another episode of Critical Political Thinking. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Critical Political Thinking. My name's Corey Camasso, and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to start things off with the Joe Biden infrastructure plan, also known as the Green New Deal Part 2. And what do we mean by that? Well, the Green New Deal covered many things such as, let's say, money for the cancellation of oil-based jobs. It gives money to companies that implement batteries for these green cars and windmill technology and solar technology. But that's not infrastructure, is it now? Or at least the definition we know. So that's why we, in fact, call it the Green New Deal Part 2, because it is, in fact, the majority, in fact, exactly what the Green New Deal was. Just retitled and kind of swayed into different perceptions. And the ABC, NBC, CNN conglomerates of the liberal media are jumping right on board and pushing the topics and narratives. And of course, if anyone goes against this infrastructure plan, you must in fact be racist, because there's so much in there for, minorities and whatnot. So if you don't like it, you must not like minorities. That would be the only reason they put that in there, to appease the minorities and steal their vote, even though at the end of the day, and we're going to explain how, nothing, let me say that one more time, nothing that the Democrats have done for the American people has benefited America in any way, shape, or form. And we're going to explain all of that. So what's in this infrastructure plan, and why does it have nothing to do with infrastructure? Well, first of all, only $115 billion goes to roads and bridges. Out of the trillions of dollars, only $115 billion. Okay, so then it has nothing to do with infrastructure. That would be one of the minor parts. So let's talk about the major parts, and that is green new jobs, green new transportation, a push for railroads. What is this, the 1900s? You ever hear of a thing called an airplane? It does well better than, trains. Come on now. We need to start looking into the future, not into the past. And the Democrats want to look into the past for the simple reason that if they're able to maintain control and force people to have this dependence on them, then they will always have a place and they will always have power. Meanwhile, you have the Republican Party, which is truly the party of the people, and they are attempting to empower the people, and that scares the Democrats, and that can't be, so we have to push out a new structure plan. We have to redo everything that the Republicans did for the American people under the disguise that we're actually helping them, but when in fact we're setting them back even further. So what are the detriments to having your own transportation, to having the ability to go wherever you want, whenever you want? Other than climate, nothing. And, well, there you go. It has to do with climate, not infrastructure. Oh, funny, isn't it? Funny how all of these things fall into place. They're pushing their climate change, they're pushing their Green New Deal, and they're pushing their tax hike, and they're disguising it all under this infrastructure plan, which is in effect, the way that they are initiating this change. They tried to start with the $15 minimum wage, and we're not shut down, but people caught on too fast, and the businesses put their foot down. So they had to come back and find another way to do it. So they're doing it through this infrastructure plan. Now, what you have is most of the money is going towards Green New Deal stuff. like, batteries. But guess what? In the time frame that this infrastructure plan would go into place, there's no way for the American industry to push out that many batteries that fast, nor do we have the raw materials to do so. So who, in effect, would benefit more than America from this transportation boom to the green? I know, China. Isn't that Joe Biden's best friend, China? So this is starting to make a little more sense now, isn't it, people? So not only is China going to benefit more than the American industry for this conversion, we are losing out on our oil that the Trump administration has literally fortified, built, and through the Keystone Pipeline had made a direct line, a safe line, mind you. Everyone's talking about how it's terrible for the economy, terrible for the environment, this, that, and the other thing. It truly isn't. As a matter of fact, it provided money for American people. And yes, it may not be the best for the greenhouse gases and the carbon footprint on this great world. But what we need to understand and what we need to start to realize is this world is going to go whenever it goes anyway. And most countries aren't even paying attention to the Paris Accord, not to mention they don't even have to implement their strategies for another 10 years in some cases. Meanwhile, we're paying for things now. So not only did he re-sign us up for this Green New Deal, he is now implementing strategies in place to fortify this Paris Accord, fortify their climate change plan, and in effect, fortify their dependence on the basic American person to the government. Meanwhile, you see China's going to be increasing substantially financially. They're going to be doing better off. Meanwhile, they don't give a shit about the Paris Accord. They don't care. I promise with all my heart they're going to do whatever they want to do to benefit themselves and their country, because that is how the world always worked. That is human nature, to take over, to be in the lead, to be a powerful leader. And as long as humans have the ability to do so, we're always going to have this power struggle. But what most American people need to realize is the reason we came to America is for freedom and the right and ability to grow and to prosper. And the Democrats don't want to see that happen. They want to force you into this cycle, this cyclical honeybee pattern where you are forced to do all of the labor and they are forced to reap the power and benefits. And you're allowing them to do this through all of these infrastructure plans that have nothing to do with infrastructure and more to do with control. So they're literally attempting to change travel overnight. And what are they going to do? They're going to gain control over the vehicles. So because all of these automated electric vehicles will therefore be controlled by power grids and the production and distribution of power instead of oil and things that people can tend to figure out on their own, now what we have is we have more and more dependence on a government that has the ability to tax these things now. So what you're going to see, in fact, is not only a higher price structure and more taxes going into the federal government that way and more control, you are now going to have more of a dependence on the government for these qualities. So oil, gas, all that stuff, yes, we pay by barrel. It's all a problem as it is. When inflation goes up, the gas goes up, logistics go up, the cost of everything goes up. But what people are failing to realize is we had a balance. We had a infrastructure, for lack of better words, in place. And now they are attempting to sway that back into the control of the government instead of the people. People are no longer going to be able just to get in a car and go somewhere. They're going to become dependent on public transportation once again. It's just more and more government control and overreach when, in fact, we had things going in a better direction. And this plan will be the end of the American democracy that we once knew. And it's a shame that they're labeling themselves Democrats, because there's nothing democratic about the Democratic Party of today. Nothing at all. So let's talk a little bit more about where they plan to move this infrastructure. Well, they're trying to go into rail and green cars, windmill, solar power. But again, do you know how much energy it takes to create a large windmill? More than it will produce in the first 8 years of operation. So I don't think people understand. They only last, 40, 45 years, even if maintained properly. So I don't think people have really done the balance of power. They are just so stuck on this woke agenda. This whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words are now apparently worse. It just doesn't even make any sense. And we have become such a weak person And our people have become so weak because we are focusing more on feelings than we are on facts. And facts are the one thing that will always drive and build a community and build a country. Feelings will be the one thing to hold you back. And I hate to say it that way. I don't want to be a cold-hearted individual. But when you're running a country, feelings should be one of the last things that matter. Especially in this day and age, when you have countries like Russia, China, North Korea, ready to pounce and take over the world. And we are falling right into their hands, and Joe Biden and the woke administration is tempting so hard to just regain power that they think they'll have this minor bit of power, even though we're really losing our American power and the power of the people. And that's why we even created this channel, to make sure you understand we still have this power. As long as we have the Second and First Amendments and they don't continue to destroy them with social media giants and big tech, we will always have control. As long as the government fears its people, they will remain in line. Now let's talk really quick about taxes and this new Biden tax structure and why it's terrible. So first of all, you have AOC selling shirts that say tax the rich, tax the rich. And why? Why? Because they're trying to put out this false lie, these false ideas that the rich aren't paying their fair share. Well, let me give you some hard statistics that will literally, in about 1 minute, destroy the entire Democratic, proposal that these rich people aren't paying their fair share of taxes, and the poor people are actually paying more. It couldn't be any further from the truth. So did you know that the top 1%, so that means 99% of the rest of the Americans, the top 1% of Americans pay 40% of the entire taxes? That's right. The top 1% pay 40% of all taxes. Meanwhile, they're only making 25% of all income. So the top 1%, yes, they make 25% of all income in the United States, but they're paying 40% in those taxes. So for you to say that they're not paying their fair share is kind of disgraceful. As a matter of fact, did you know that the top 1% actually pay 27% of their income to taxes? So 27 cents out of every dollar goes to taxes. Meanwhile, you have Americans. Standard, regular, 99% of Americans. Well, 50% of the lowest wage earners, we're not even going from 50 to 99%. 50% of the lowest wage earners only pay 4% of their total income. After tax breaks and tax reductions and income tax returns, did you know that the lowest 50% of earners in America only pay 4% of their income towards taxes? Meanwhile, the top 1% pays 27% of their income. Do you still think it's fair? Because I don't. I actually think the rich are being overtaxed. But I'm okay with that because they are capable of living on the income that they're being provided. So we have to take things like that into account and think about the welfare and the betterment of the people around them. But at the same time, then you look into the philanthropy of many of these rich individuals and the fact that, most of the money they even earn outside of that 27% that they're giving to the government, they're probably giving another 20, 30% to charity. So for that person that gave up his entire life to follow his American dream, build his company off the sweat and blood of his back, and yes, his employees are sweating and bleeding as well to produce those products, but they're being paid a fair wage for the amount of work that they put into that. If they don't have to work there. They're not being forced. That's their choice. If not, they can start a business. They could do their own thing. But see, that's the problem with America. Everyone thinks they're owed something anymore. They seem to think that because they work for a company that they didn't build, they had nothing to do with, it wasn't even their idea, but because they're working, they deserve more of the profit. Well, I'm sorry, that's not the way America works. And that's why America is such a fantastic country. And it's not dictatorial. You can't be told what to do with your business. You can't be told who to pay. But at the same time, if you're not paying a fair wage, you'll have no fair employees. It all works out in the end, and people are screwing with the system. They're attempting to force a $15 minimum wage for mediocre jobs. What does that do? That actually harms, and let me explain how that harms. It puts people into a sense of conformity. They now have the ability and knowledge to know that they can continue to operate how they're operating, get by, live paycheck to paycheck, and have this honeybee mentality that the Democrats want. They want to be in full control. They don't want anybody to rise up. They don't want to see anyone be industrious. They don't want to see people rise to the top. They would rather only a few rise to the top and share the power with them, if power at all. Instead, you have people now being okay with making $15. That's enough to get by. Hell, that's enough to get by with one family member. So not only are they destroying the family system and the ability for two people to work together, which was the point of a family, to work together and to build something for themselves. Instead, now you have two people separately struggling. That's what they want. They want dependency. They want you to work and rely on them. They don't want you to have everything in the world, because then you may have a little more power and money than them, and they can't have that. Think of Democrats as selfish and Republicans as sharing. Frankly, that's just the way it works, because the Republicans are trying to tax not only the rich, but the poor. They're trying to tax everybody equally. Meanwhile, you have the Democrats who are attempting to lie to the lower class and pretend like they're getting them more, when in fact all they're doing is getting them just enough to get by and never have ambitions or to strive to do better. See, it's the people that are struggling, it's the people that don't have anything that work the hardest to get where they are. I know people might not agree with that, but it's true. You know, it's not till you hit the very bottom that you learn what the top is. And I think that's very important for the American struggle, and I think that's why America is so great, because you can hit the bottom and come back to the top. There is no, you can't do it. The only person that can stop you is yourself. And the Democrats don't want you to believe that. They want you to think that the white people are stopping you, or the men are stopping you, or whoever it may be that day, whoever the woke generation is against, that's the reason you can't get to the top, not yourself. They don't ever want you to have faith in yourself. Well, guess what, Americans? Start having faith in yourself. And mark my words, you will beat the system. The only person capable of holding you back is you. And the Democrats will never tell you that, because they want to have the power. They want to be the savior. They want to be the person to come to you and say, listen, we just got you $15 an hour. We're the greatest. Vote for us. We just let you into the country. We're the greatest. Vote for us. Instead of, you didn't earn it. You didn't do it yourself. So you don't even understand the value of what it is that you have. And if you don't have the value and you don't understand what it is that you've earned, you'll never truly appreciate it, and we'll never truly have a community worth having. America, we're going in the wrong direction. It's about time we pick ourselves up, put our feet down, and say enough is enough. America was built on dreams, on industry, and on entrepreneurial spirit. And right now, they are shutting it all down. They shut down small business, and they made you depend on the SBA to get by. And if you didn't have enough saved up to that point, then you are done for, and they don't even care. There's nothing you can do about it. They want you now to depend on them, go on unemployment, and then take your $15 an hour minimum wage job and just be a busy bee so they can control the world. Don't let them do it. Fight for the American dream. Fight for your American dream. Be someone, be something. Because that is why we are here. We get one shot at this earth, one shot at this world, as far as we know. And by darn, you better do something with it. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Corey Camasso, and this is Critical Political Thinking. We are a non-paid, non-monetized channel. We do everything we do because we know it has to be done, and we know the truth deserves to be heard. If you have the ability to help us share the truth, please visit www.criticalpoliticalthinking.com and join our Critical Political Thinkers Club today. Check out this awesome mug that could be yours by joining. And remember, it's all donations, and we send these to you free of charge if you donate. And we thank you for your donation and helping us continue to grow. Thank you so much for watching Critical Political Thinking. My name is Corey Camasso. Stay safe. And God bless America.